Welcome to View from the Markets, a new weekly series from the Financial Times. We're here in Beijing, in the former house of a Manchu prince, and with us is international investor and author Jim Rogers. How do you do?
I'm delighted to be here, Jamil.
You've said you're selling US assets, so what makes you so bearish on the dollar?
Well, the US dollar is a terribly flawed currency. As recently as 1987, the United States was a creditor nation. We're now the largest debtor nation the world has ever seen in only 20 years. We owe the rest of the world over 13 trillion with a T US dollars. That's a bad number, but what's worse is our foreign debts are increasing at the rate of $1 trillion every 15 months. It's simple arithmetic at how fast it's going to go up, but it's pretty terrifying arithmetic. I don't want to own a currency which is being debased that way. The central bank in America has said that they're going to print as many dollars as they have to drive down the value of the currency. The Secretary of the Treasury is trying to drive down the value of the currency. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that it's a currency that's going to be going down for some time to come. They want to debase the currency. The head of the central bank has been printing money since he got there for 2 years. He's printing money very rapidly now, especially since the summer. This is a man who his whole intellectual career has been spent studying the printing of money. Now America's giving him the printing presses. I don't want to be in a currency like that.
So what's your assessment of Bernanke's performance so far?
Well, it's been a disaster.
Did
I not make myself clear? He's been a disaster. I mean, he's been printing much too much money since the beginning. Last summer, he bailed out his friends on Wall Street, said there was some kind of problem. I mean, the stock market was down 6%. If a 6% decline in the stock market causes the man to go and cut interest rates by 0.5%, when inflation is running rampant, when the dollar's under pressure anyway, what's he going to do when the market's down 36%? What's he going to do when we have a real crisis? I mean, he's going to print money till we run out of trees. I don't want to own U.S. dollars in an environment like that. I don't know why you would. I don't know why anybody would.
So is the U.S. already in a recession?
In my view, yes. We know that housing is in worse than recession. We know that automobiles are in worse than recession. We know that many parts of the financial community are in worse than recession. We know that machinery, Caterpillar Tractor, one of the largest machinery companies in the world, has said it's the worst they've seen in 50 years. There are a lot of sectors of the American economy that are in serious trouble, shall we say. The government says it's not a recession. I'd like to know from them what's keeping it up then of all these other sectors. And, you know, housing and automobiles are two of the very largest sectors. What's not in recession? Retail sales are going down. I could go on and on.
So what's next? What do you think is coming?
Well, for the dollar? Well, probably the dollar's going to have a big rally about now because everybody in the world is short the dollar. And when, in my experience in the investment markets, when everybody's on one side of the boat, you better think about going to the other side of the boat for a while. I suspect there'll be a rally. I have no idea what will cause it. And if there's a rally for a few weeks, a few months, I would urge you to sell that rally. That's my plan, to get the rest of my dollars out of get the rest of my money out of U.S. dollars.
You've actually been bearish on the dollar for more than a decade. So why are you getting headlines now? Is it to do with promoting your new book? Or?
I didn't know I wasn't getting headlines. You called me. I didn't call you. The dollar has been steadily going down, as you know, for several years. It's not been a wonderful place to be. I have no idea. Maybe it's because now the dollar's starting to crescendo a little bit more. And actually, now that I think about it, I don't think it has anything to do with me. As you probably know, the dollar has been trading. It's never gone below 80. There's an index which the federal government reports. It's never gone below 80 in the history of the world until the last 2 or 3 months when Bernanke started printing all this money and cutting interest rates in a terribly inflationary environment. He was cutting interest rates. It's broken below that level, so it's now going to the lowest level in history. So maybe that's why more and more people are starting to pay attention to the dollar.
You're known for being apolitical. Are you backing anyone in next year's U.S. presidential election?
Well, yes, a pox on both of their houses, as far as I'm concerned, the Democrats and the Republicans. I rarely, if ever, pay much attention. I always vote, but I don't pay too much attention to them because I know they're pretty hopeless. However, in this election, if Ron Paul gets anywhere near the nomination, I will certainly support him. I mean, he's the only one that I've seen in American politics that seems to have a clue about what's going on in the world. Will he win? If I'm backing him, there's no way. There's no way, I assure you. Poor guy. Poor Ron.
So we've just had the Chinese equivalent of a US presidential election, the Communist Party Congress here in Beijing. What's your assessment of the administration of President Hu Jintao?
Well, if you look back over the past 30 years, you have to think that the Chinese government has been the best-run government in the world, or certainly one of the best-run governments in the 30 years. Since Deng Xiaoping said, hey, there's a problem here.
Including the Tiananmen incident? You think that was good management?
Well, it was a problem. It was certainly a problem. But if you look back in American history, 100 years ago, we had 4 presidents assassinated. We had a horrible civil war. We had massacres every 5 or 6 years. Massacres every 5 or 6 years, huge ones. We had no rule of law. You could buy and sell, you could still buy and sell congressmen, but 100 years ago they were a lot cheaper to buy and sell. We had horrible problems. We became a pretty successful country as we rose out of the 19th century. Sure, Tiananmen Square was a mess. Nobody would defend that, including, I'm sure, Deng Xiaoping. But that's the worst that happens to China in the 50-year period we're talking about right now. That'll be terrific. I was just trying to compare it to America or compare it to the UK. When they rose to power and glory in the 18th century, oh my goodness, read Charles Dickens. Lots of people you can read about what a mess it was, and still they were very successful.
Do you see any political turmoil on the horizon? Do you see any political problems?
In China? Well, as you know, and as the Chinese government quite openly talks about, there have been thousands of demonstrations in China in the last 2, 3, 5 years. As the Chinese citizenry is becoming more and more prosperous, they're demanding more and more, as all countries do when they get more prosperous. Is that political turmoil? I don't consider that political turmoil. No, I don't see any signs of political turmoil. Who knows? That's the problem. It always comes out of the blue. When you can anticipate political turmoil, it never happens because everybody knows it's coming and they do something about it. I don't see any political turmoil coming in China on the horizon, except for the fact that people are getting more and more upset when things go wrong. They demonstrate about bad pollution, bad air. They demonstrate about bad housing. They demonstrate now. I don't consider that political turmoil. Some people might.